Nothing quite moves the human spirit as sports does. Just think of the mood whenever there's a major match. Quiet streets, packed bars, tense living room atmosphere with that thunderous cheer or shattered groan every now and then. Frankly, I can't think of anything other than competitive sports that has this power to stir, to surge emotions of loyalty, of patriotism, triumph, disappointment and despair, and at such a primal level. In the past month or so, we Singaporeans felt this. And some would say after a bloody long time. First, Fandi Ahmad led our boys to bring home the coveted Malaysia Cup after 21 long years. And then the incredible, unprecedented performance by Team Singapore at the recent SEA Games held here, where we hauled in a record 84 gold medals and came in second. Yes, this small red dot. Welcome to Debate IQ. I am Vishwa Sadashivan. Now, after this incredible sports performance, how can we not pay tribute to our sportsmen and women who worked so hard to bring home glory? What a gift to the nation as we celebrate our 50th year of independence. What's just as poignant is that we achieved this almost entirely with our homegrown talent. Now, sports icon and coach of our national soccer team, Fandi Ahmad, put it most aptly when the Lions 12 won the Malaysia Cup. He said, and I quote him, "We did it without any foreign signings." Now, this is why IQ has decided that we must have a special discussion on sports excellence. This is why we are here today, a gathering of top sportsmen and women, legends, commentators, observers, leaders, and policymakers to recognize this achievement, this moment, and at the same time ask some important questions, perhaps inconvenient questions, with a view to ensuring we don't lose momentum. The topic is Singapore sports ready to go solo? 3 key questions. How do we feel about this achievement? Now, what's the effect it has on us as individuals and collectively as a people? Are we at a point of inflection? Are we ready to do away with the foreign sports talent scheme? Question 2. What accounts for this achievement? Some say it's home ground advantage, since historically we have always done better when the Games is held here. For example, in 1973, we came in second out of 7 countries competing. In 1983, 4th out of 8 countries. 1993, 4th out of 8 countries. And this year, we came in second out of 11 competing countries. There's also the SG50 factor that spurred our athletes to go for gold. There's no question about it. But apart from these, to what extent have the various government schemes and initiatives contributed? What about the media coverage that has led up to this competition, And what about Active SG? How effective has it been in stimulating ground support? Question 3. What next? How do we ensure that we don't lose the powerful momentum that has been created here? What are the key challenges and hurdles we need to overcome? What are the areas we need to pay more attention to? What new initiatives do we need? And frankly, what can we realistically aim for? Now, with me on the panel is the Minister for Social and Family Development, Tan Chuan-Jin, who is here in his capacity as the President of the Singapore National Olympic Council, or SNOC. Minister, I know that you're extremely busy with so many things going on at this point in time in your ministry that you've just taken over. And so I really appreciate that you're making time, that you've taken time to be with us here today. It shows your commitment to sports. Our second panelist is nominated Member of Parliament, Dr Benedict Tan. Dr Tan is not only head of the Department of Sports Medicine at Changi General Hospital, he's also an Asian Games gold medalist for sailing, a 4-time SEA Games gold medalist, and a 3-time Sportsman of the Year award winner, among others. And last but certainly not least is Lim Teck Yin, CEO of Sports Singapore. Sports Singapore, of course, played a crucial role in the successful campaign for medals in the recent SEA Games. He was also chairman of the organizing committee of the 28th SEA Games. Congratulations, Teck Yin. I'm sure we'll all agree it was very well organized and a source of pride for Singaporeans.
Thank you, Vishwa.
Right. Now, studio audience, What a great gathering of sportsmen and women and sports legends, commentators, bloggers and coaches. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really an honor and a singular privilege to have all of you seated together here with IQ. Thank you very much for making the time. Now, before we launch into the debate proper, here's a quick look at a video clip we put together to set the stage for the discussion.
Singapore's sports history is a roller coaster ride of lows and highs. We have come a long way from the early days of nationhood, when sports reflected the new nation's hopes for excellence, to the record haul at the recent SEA Games. Across the years that Singapore has participated in the SEA Games, it has seen several peaks in its medal haul. Starting from the year we went independent, 1965, when we won 28 gold medals and 78 medals in total. Not surprisingly, Singapore saw peaks in its medal tally whenever it hosted the Games. This was true for the medal haul in 1973, 1983, and 1993. In 1993, we scored a historic 50 gold medals and 164 medals in total. This year, true to pattern, Singapore has seen a record haul of 84 gold medals and 259 medals in total, landing it in second place in the rankings. This is Singapore's highest ranking since the 1975 Games, when it finished in second place. Another aspect of sports that has a special place in Singapore's heart is football. In particular, Singapore's football history in relation to the Malaysia Cup has been filled with drama and emotions. Since independence, Singapore reached the finals 13 times and won the cup 5 times. In 1965, Singapore beat Selangor 3-1 to take the cup. In 1977, it beat Penang 3-2 to lift the cup. The 1980 final saw Singapore and Selangor in a replay of the 1965 final, where Singapore beat Selangor 2-1 to clinch the cup. The most dramatic showdown took place between Singapore and Pahang in 1994, where victory came at the score of 4-0. However, on the heels of victory came the withdrawal of Singapore from the league that only ended in 2012. Sweet victory only returned to Singapore when the Lions team of 2015 beat Kelantan 3-1 to bring the cup back to Singapore after 21 long years. Coach Fandi Ahmad's words summed up the mood of the feat. We did it without any stars. We did it without any foreign signings. As a nation, we may only be 50 years old, but our records speak for themselves. We saw our first male and female Olympians in 1948 and 1952 respectively. In 1960, Tan Hao Liang made history as the first Olympic medalist for the nation. We would have to wait 48 years before our paddlers finally scored another Olympic medal for the nation. Have our recent successes come on the back of various support initiatives like the multi-million-dollar awards program, the Foreign Talent Sports Scheme, the High Performance Scheme, and the Final Push, among others? Foreign talent has become a pillar in our sporting success since the 1998 National Day rally speech by then Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong, in which he said, "Maybe if we change our immigration criteria to bring in top football talent and make them citizens, then one day we too can get into the finals. In fact, we intend to do just this, to bring in sports talent." We have welcomed foreign talent into our fold since then, and many have become naturalized citizens. The question is, as Singapore sports comes of age, have we come far enough to move away and become independent, to go solo?
There's a great improvement for our local athletic. You can see that our swimmer, our water polo, we don't have so much foreign player. In fact, all are mostly local.
I had a student who is playing for Singapore's volleyball team. She's a homegrown. Yeah, so I think, yes, we can.
We don't mind even if we a Singaporean who doesn't win, but we want to see that person put in his effort. So whether we win or not, the result, it doesn't really matter. We want to see our homegrown being given the opportunity to go and compete. I think that's the most important thing.
So let me ask the Minister the first question, as is often the tradition. Right. Not that you have all the answers to all the questions,
I
but
don't.
give us your opinion. Do you truly believe that we are at a point of inflection, or is it true what some people say, that this is a fluke, it's a one-off?
I think if it's a fluke, we wouldn't have achieved the kind of achievements that we did in the SEA Games. I think change has been happening for some time. The systems, processes have been put in place. We have seen, I think, in the various games, athletes been peaking and performing well. But I think collectively we see it coming together at the SEA Games. I think you also got to look at the context. It is our SG 50 years. We are hosting it as a home ground support, which cuts both ways as well. It can be also quite overwhelming pressure for some athletes. But I think you see this coming together in a very big and a very significant ways. But I think the changes have been put in place in the last few years. I think have begun. I think in many ways we begin to see the fruition of some of those efforts. And I think this process will continue.
Thanks. Ben?
I think that point of inflection that you mentioned is very distinct. It's very clear. If you look at the medal tally, yes, at every home games or every games that we host, there is a peak, but this is a huge peak.
Huge.
And it's across a lot of sports.
And the number of countries participating is also much larger.
Exactly.
11.
And the real question is, how did we achieve this point of inflection? Like the Minister mentioned, it's multifactorial. Our preparations this time around has been very comprehensive, with the final push program, with the other support systems all coming into play, with our athletes putting in that extra effort, knowing that it is a home games. All that has come together to produce this. I mean, I've been tracking the athletes' preparation, because to me, preparation is always important, the most important. Without the preparation, you can't get anywhere. And at this level, whoever trains more wins.
Yep.
Okay? And our athletes did put in the time. I've seen people who gone full-time, went full-time for the SEA Games much earlier than they would have in other events.
All right. Thank you. Teck Yin?
Well, I agree with what has been said about different factors having to come together to make it all work. And I think credit must go to the National Sports Associations for recognizing that, and for recognizing the special opportunity to be part of the 36 sports that were competed. I think we know that there were other sports that wanted to get in, and I think all of our national sports associations recognize that indeed it was a privilege that they were one of the 36 that got involved, and I think credit to them that they saw this as a very special privilege. So different things come together. It took a whole nation to do this.
To what extent did the final push act as a catalyst?
I think the final push program extended a level of support that we had not previously extended. And it accounted for the size of Singapore's contingent at the end of the day that came for the Games. If you look at the total number of athletes that were supported for the final push, the total number were more than medal winners. So there were non-medal winners in the final push program as well. But the message out there was that everybody who we are supporting, we know has a medal potential, and they should make every effort to do their best. And they recognize that. I think the athletes must believe, the NSAs must believe, but I would credit a large part also to the nation who got behind them, because there were many, many, what I would call really inspired performances.
Right, thanks. Audience? Well, as sportsmen, as observers, what do you think?
Yeah, certainly it's going to be a starting point. I don't see why we cannot continue. But we have to be very alert. The other day I was reading in the papers when our basketballers got a bronze medal, and then somewhere in the paragraph the coach said this: they showed they have a lot of potential, and I hope they will get more support to help them improve. So we are saying that we have all the support system, but we must read these little things from the various teams and NSAs. So here he is saying, hey, if we got more support, we'll
Right.
get better.
Yeah. You know, Kok Fan, if I could ask you, legendary soccer player, soccer is a sport in particular where the chemistry with the crowd makes a huge difference. Right? You want to share with us whether that came into play in our Malaysia Cup victory?
I think you're referring to the Malaysia FA Cup,
Yep.
the recent
FA
one.
Cup.
Credit to the team. I think they took their chances really well. But I have to caution, within the background of our discussion here, that we do not get carried away with that performance on that day, that game, where our strikers took their chances well. But look at it on a broader perspective. I think this win was sweet, but if you were to do a survey and poll the fans, myself included, I think it's probably fair to say that on most occasions when we watch the games, it's actually a very painful journey, because we come with a very passionate view that we want our team to do well, we want to root for it. By the way, I'm also a great fan of athletics and swimming, and I've had high regard for the water polo team. I have some ideas on how we could leverage on some of the discipline in those areas, especially in the area of competencies. But really, I think it comes with a huge responsibility. It comes with this X factor whereby you need to be able to perform when expectations are high, and when you have 50,000 or 16,000 who would even curse your parents when you don't play well. And I think that comes with a lot of training, discipline and desire.
Psychological.
Absolutely. And I think, for example, I remember the late Uncle Chu used to tell us, for us, when we were making our very first appearance, the first pass, just do a simple pass with the inside of your foot and forget about everything else. But that was very crucial, because when you make the first pass, albeit a simple one, a square pass, it gives you that confidence to build upon. But I think at the end of the day, it actually boils down to this point that Dr. Ben raised. It's about preparation.
Yeah.
Because if you prepare well, as sportsmen we know, you get into the zone groove.
Yeah.
It just happened for you.
That's right.
So I think the electrifying experience it can be very painful. I can share with you when you don't perform.
Sure. And it goes back to what the Minister said just now, that home ground can be double-edged. The pressure can actually be higher in some. Mark, I saw you nodding when Kok Fan was talking. I mean, what's your own sense of this?
But let's not forget that the Southeast Asian Games is our standard as opposed to our rest of the Southeast Asian countries.
Yeah.
But there were some really great performances in the Southeast Asian Games, which actually shows that we are world standard or even Asian standard. And I think that to me is also a great indicator. It's great that we're achieving 84, and I think it is sustainable. The fact that this is held in Singapore also meant that a lot of the athletes stayed on to represent Singapore in Singapore. I think to a great extent, SPEC scholarships as well as the final push assisted in that, and a lot of the athletes were able to continue. And for us to be able to continue this, I feel that this should be a continual process to allow athletes to focus at not only just the Southeast Asian Games, but the Asian Games or even the Olympic Games next year in Rio. So, those are my basic thoughts.
So it's not a time, it's time to celebrate, but not a time to be complacent.
Yeah, the Southeast Asian Games is appropriate level to gauge how we are against our neighbours.
Yeah.
But I think there were some very outstanding performances also to show that we are Asian standard or world standard as well.
Yeah. Thank you. PC Supaya, legendary. Your record for 10,000 meters is still not broken yet.
Yeah, it was 41 years still.
Still not broken yet?
Yeah, just recently broke. Oh,
broken?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did that in Munich Olympic Games, barefooted.
Barefooted, famous barefoot run.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to say some things about the stadium. It's a wonderful stadium. You see, because I see all the athletes and all that are doing very fast. Fast time they break their personal best and all that. Is one of the reasons is a fast track. You see, the other way is because on the early stage, the family members and all that, they don't come to the stadium to watch athletics and all that. I was very surprised to see on the first day, it's about 7,000 to 8,000 people. Yeah.
And that made a difference.
A lot of difference. You see, because of the home crowd, when the Singaporean participate, you see, they don't care whether what the minister was telling, you see, whether they can win medals or whatever it is, as long as Singapore. So the crowd cheer for them. You see, that's wonderful. I didn't expect the Singaporean to do that. You see, so every day the crowd become more and more and more. You see, it's a advantage for the athletes. You see, they don't feel shy. You see, they feel great.
Very different from when you were running alone in Munich.
Precisely.
And there were only two of you, right?
Yes.
You and
Nur Azhar, Hamid, and one more. Kadi boxer.
Kadi was. So how big was our contingent?
Seven of us. EWD Bakar was leading our team and all that, you see. So that's how I went for the Munich Olympic Games, because I didn't break the record or whatever it is, because I got a gold medal for the 1971 Siap Games. You see? So that's one of the reasons they elected me.
Great point.
But for this year, we also took the approach in SNOC to actually expand the pool of athletes taking part. So as with all competitions, you have always cut off positions, because you do want your athletes to represent your country and fly the flag well. But we took a more expansive approach. For one, I think for many of our athletes, they don't get a chance to perform in front of their own families, because sometimes for competitions, you're abroad, it's not always easy for them to take leave or just to travel. But we thought it would be good to give as many athletes as possible the chance to perform on home ground in front of their families and friends, for them to see, winning medals or not, I mean, of course, that's always great, but for them to be there to cheer you on, as you mentioned. And I think that experience will be quite valuable. And I think it will be instructive for us to take a look at it and what it means for us in terms of future selection as well. But I'm quite happy that we took that step and allowed more athletes to participate, and at least for their families to cheer them on.
Yeah.
Can I just go back a bit to what Minister mentioned?
Said, yeah.
He said that SNOC widened the criteria to allow more athletes to participate in the home games, so that we can field more athletes for all the events. And that's an interesting experiment, because you notice the extended group that got in, they delivered.
Yeah.
Right? So we widened the net, and that extra athletes, which otherwise in our overseas games would not have qualified to represent Singapore, that group actually delivered and did very well. So that's something I observed. And I think like what was mentioned about the spectators, that's another strong evidence of the inflection point, because you look at the spectatorship, it's very high, and these games showed the public, showed Singaporeans that sports is exciting, it's fun to watch, right? And with that, there will be downstream benefits. With that, the sponsors will say, hey, maybe I should put my sponsorship dollars on sports, because that it will attract eyeball and give mileage to my brand. Yeah. So hopefully that will snowball into bigger things, and more money to sports and more funding for sports.
Well, I guess it begs the question then, a lot of these things could only really happen because it's home ground. I mean, you can't replicate some of these factors as much if you are competing elsewhere, right? I mean, the size of your contingent, the size of your support. I mean, so if you are too dependent on the kind of moral support, then competing on somebody else's soil may be a challenge, and goes back to Fan's point about psychological ability to be able to go out there.
That's just one component, but I mean, as what Ben mentioned, you see, when you have the ecosystem growing, meaning that you have support, and public is attuned to coming forward in so great numbers. Athletics, I mean, it's incredible to see the stadium filled with people, and it was weekdays, and you're wondering, afternoon people come and watch. And the fact that people come, I think that has an impact on sponsors. But you see, it's not about competing on home ground. It means that actually when you have local competitions like track and field or athletics, you're not talking about SEA Games, where you're talking about regional competition, and all the sports have regional competitions or other competitions that we can bring in. It allows the athletes to compete. You know that the sponsors will come in, even though it's a localized event. You know the supporters are there, but all this is part of the preparation. So as they begin to gear themselves up, you are putting in place a system where you're setting the conditions to increase the probability of them doing better and doing well when they compete elsewhere. And I think this is the momentum that you want to build on, because what we know now is that actually people will come and watch. And I would also give credit to the way the games were organized. I mean, like sailing. They changed the format of the sailing competition. So usually it's like, take binoculars, you see, don't know what's happening. Oh, they won, okay. But here the finishing line was actually close to shore, and I think a lot of the other countries were quite surprised that you mean this can be done, and it was so exciting, and that actually generates interest, I think, and you see that happening in the way the swimmers were being introduced. It's a bit snazzy, but it made it fun for audiences. so all these different things, I think I add it up together, creates a nice, overall ecosystem, and along with all the different, whether it's a final push program and so on, I think it sets a condition for, but we have to take stock. What was it that really added up to it? And I think it augurs well for us going forward to the future, not just for us hosting, but I think providing that base for our athletes so that they can really develop a potential. And then I think you hopefully would be able to see similar, if not better performances when they go abroad.
And this, in fact, I wouldn't say that it can only happen in the home games. Reason is that with the media coverage nowadays and a Singaporean athlete competing overseas, if our media is good at covering it, it can bring that to Singaporeans on TV sets at home as well.
And online as well. Exactly. A lot of it can be done. I agree. But there is, we can't deny it, there is still a certain home ground advantage. Yes, and I guess what we need to do now is to try and find out, after distilling the home ground advantage factor, what are the permanent factors that can continue to bring us this success? I think let's examine that. But before we do that, I'd like to go back to my earlier question. How many of you feel that the time has come for us to do away, some people say do away with the foreign sports talent scheme? Or can it coexist? Some people say there's still a benefit in having foreign talent come in. What's your sense?
We are not bringing anybody else in. We are finished with that. So
I don't think we
need to harp
finished,
upon
right?
that.
We have not closed it yet, but it's not as intensive as before, I guess. It's not closed yet. The scheme is still on.
To put it in perspective, there are about 1,400 carded athletes today, and those that came in under the foreign sporting talent scheme, they represent 2.5% of that total cohort. I think foreign sporting talent are more pronounced in certain sports and less pronounced in others. So in netball, you have one player who came in under that scheme. In table tennis, you have more. It's also reflective of the state of the sport worldwide, right? So in the sport of table tennis, when you look across national contingents in any world championship or at the Olympic Games, there are a lot of table tennis players that were born in China. They have joined and become citizens of many different countries, and it is the country's system of training, support, the total ecosystem that determines whether the country is able to succeed. So I think the perspective that we take on foreign sporting talent needs to be taken from the perspective of what kind of country we are. There are many Singaporeans who are not born here who continue to make and call Singapore their home and contribute economically, contribute in sport, contribute in other schemes.
Sure. I guess the point here is, number one, how much of dependence are we going to have?
Well, at 2.5%.
Yeah. So it's not going to be going up. If you maintain it, is it all right? So I just wanted to have your views on this. I mean, anyone has a strong view on this matter? Yes, please.
I have a personal experience playing with foreign talent scheme in Singapore. For me personally, I feel that
soccer, right?
Soccer, yes. In terms of short-term plan, yes, it's right. We tap on their expertise because they can value add to the team. But in the longer run, I think we definitely have to rely on our local talents, which is very important for us, especially at the youth level. We need to really focus on the youth level so that our foundation will be very strong. Mainly when I speak to my teammates, especially the foreign talents, there are three objectives, there are main three objectives for taking up the citizenship. Firstly, they always say that they were not given the opportunity to play at their own country, at the highest level. Then they find that the opportunity is given in Singapore. Secondly, of course, they say they're paid much better than in Singapore. And last but not least, they always say Singapore is a very safe place to reside, at the same time to bring up the family. That's the reason why they take up this citizenship. But for us, as locals, I think we really have to focus on youth development. For that, the base will be very strong for us.
In fact, I totally echo that point. But you see, the thing is that when some of the players come in, like say football or some of the other sports, and the key thing about youth is, and with all sports, you need a big pipeline. You need a very strong youth core for large numbers of children and young people coming in. But actually to draw them in as well, sometimes it's also successes. And when we're successful, we have inspirational players, and that I think contributes to the growth. But you're absolutely right. I think if we just depend on injecting people without developing a pipeline, then I think we've got it completely wrong. So I think table tennis is one of those where I think you do see, and I think frankly when people talk about foreign talent, I think invariably usually the focus is on table tennis, largely because they've been quite dominant and they've done well. But many of the athletes have been here for actually quite a number of years. They were not there at a world-class standard, but they built up over time. But they have also actually inspired many young Singaporeans to take up the sport at the primary school level, secondary school level, and I think we see that growing. So I think if you want to bring in suitable talents, if that's part of the objective of the NSAs, then you must not use that as a crutch, as an easy way out. Because if you fail to develop that part, then I think you've lost the plot completely.
I think that's the key. Don't use it don't end up using it as a crutch. Then you forget how to walk. Yes.
I appreciate the discussion on the foreign talent in sports. During the SEA Games, towards the end, I followed the games very closely, and there was a lady who wrote into the forum page of the Straits Times, and I share her sentiment as she echoed how sports galvanize Singapore as a nation. And I must tell you honestly that I'm very glad to see this development and this growth and the nurturing of Singapore youth and the core. And we do need foreign talent to help spark that. But for a time, I don't know if there are others who share this view, there were many Singaporeans who felt that we were just importing the talent so that we could gain the medals. I'm glad that has moved. Because
it has moved. We have moved on from there, right?
No,
Can we get some assurance?
No, I'll say that actually the focus was largely because of one sport. But we have athletes in different sports. We have netball, badminton, but billiards. But I think the distinctive thing about the table tennis team was because they actually did well and won goals. And so the focus, and that was when people talk about those examples, it's just basically one sport, and in particular events when you did well. But actually when you actually think about it, if you look at across the different sports, it's a very different landscape.
No, but there's a larger point here, right? I don't even think I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing in someone who's talented. But what's the motivation for giving him the citizenship? Is it because he's got sports talent, or is it because he's interested in being a citizen of this country and making it his home? I mean, for me, that's a more important distinction.
I agree.
The real reason why we should give someone a citizenship should not be, I feel, because he's a sporting talent. Should be because he wants to be a citizen of this country and serve as a citizen of this country and make this his home.
Well, I think it has to be both. There are many people who want to be citizens of Singapore.
Yeah.
And I think we have been quite discerning as to whether bringing in someone who's foreign born to Singapore adds value to our total population. So in the case of economic contribution, we are very clear what that means. And we have people who call and make Singapore their home. And sports is another avenue in which
but you'd agree ultimately that making this your home, a desire to make this your home, should be the most important factor.
It should be.
Otherwise it becomes mercenary.
No, I think I would actually say that if you think about it, Singapore, we've always had immigrations. Many of our parents, our grandparents were immigrants. They came in for a host of different reasons. Many didn't come in with the intention to stay on, but eventually they settled down and they stayed on. But you see, even as today, I think Singapore, of course, is a very different stage from where it used to be. We have people wanting to come here and want to settle down. And people bring different skill sets, different contributions. And of course, one of the factors is they would like to make this place a home. But that's something that I guess anyone who applies will say that that's what they want to do. But we also want to see how do these individuals contribute to society. I think the economic dimension in terms of jobs, what they do and they contribute, over and above, I think the baseline that we expect is they want to make this space at home and align themselves with the rest of society. But then the question, of course, is what else do you bring to bear? Because there are also others who come in and who, yes, I would like to be, as part of the family here, but perhaps don't contribute in the same way. And you have to choose, because we do need to manage numbers. So actually, by recognizing sporting talent, what we're saying is that we're not just looking at economics. We're looking at different dimensions where different people could contribute and enrich our society in a calibrated fashion. And I think sports is something that I think we've had some coming in. I think there will be those that will come in as citizens. Some come in as students, and then they train themselves up and they develop accordingly. Tao Li is one example. She came as a swimmer. She came when she was quite young, in the early teens. And she has to study and then she trained up. But we embrace her like any other Singaporeans. So, but I think the key thing, like I said, is I think if we are looking at people coming in and if they develop themselves as sportsmen and sportswomen, but the NSAs cannot look at this as an excuse not to develop a pipeline. I think that must be a given.
Sure. Thanks. Yes,
I just wanted to actually sum up my point that, and I think this feeling is shared by many, that when we have a talent that's a Singaporean who brings home a medal, the pride is one that swells from within. And when it's not, we're happy and it remains there. So there is that difference. And it's something that I think, and I agree, I think we have come to the inflection. And that's something we do well to remember.
Thanks. Colin, you're father of the big star, Joseph Schooling.
Could I just go back on the issue of foreign talent?
Yeah.
First of all, we gave them an opportunity and they took advantage of it. We gave them that opportunity and they are professional athletes. So as a professional athlete, what is their objective? Is to bring victory to the country, and that's their job. Even as a youngster, when I was a young boy, every Chinese gentleman, when they die, they want to go back to China. That part of this people that we invite over to play, you cannot take that away from them. They have that passion also. They are also passionate about the country they were born. So who are we to just say, oh no, you have won this money, you have to be a Singaporean. If a guy wants to be a Singaporean and he really wants it on his own, he will be a better Singaporean than somebody who's forced to be a Singaporean. That's my perception.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
When we embrace, if I can say,
please.
When we embrace our citizens as the way we should embrace them, they embrace their home. Wang Yeku has retired. Yeku is coaching in her academy at Yio Chu Kang Sports Complex. Does her Olympic success make a difference to all the parents who send their kids to her? The answer is yes, it does. We see it. The fact that she's an Olympic medalist, many parents or many children are very much taken to be part of her academy and to train. Does she embrace the kids and hope and really want to make a difference? The answer is yes. So there are examples, and I think we find this in all segments of society, of those who have embraced Singapore as their home and who are really hoping to be able to give back in meaningful ways. And I think we want to see more of that kind of success. But the issue really is, how do we embrace them? Gao Ning has spoken to me and says, I'm going to retire in a few years. I really want to coach. I really want to develop youth. This is where I am. My anchor is here. I think these are very genuine and very distinct. But I take the point that, we want to be clear that people who come as new citizens to make Singapore their home want to really make this their home, and they want to integrate with the people of Singapore, and they make every effort to try and do so, and those people we should embrace.
Okay. Maybe we can go to this question of, since we more or less acknowledge that this is a significant point in the development in the evolution of sports excellence in Singapore, what are some of the things that have contributed to it? How do we get here? Shyam? What's your...
Obviously, the NSAs, all the comprehensive policies that have been developed, there are so many things that have changed just in a span of 10 years since when I was running. The stadium is amazing, the facilities, even as someone who was not participating, when you see the way the SEA Games was like organized, it was really, really impressive. Yeah, comparable to world-class meets that I've been to. But I think what we really need to look at if we want to go on to the next level is the mechanisms that we have in place in educational institutions to facilitate high-level sports performance. Meaning, what is being done in universities, like our big universities, formally to help our athletes train like the way it's done in a big university like the UCLA. Like they have the whole NCAA system where people are treated. You go in as a student athlete, so you have a lot of mechanisms and policies that will really allow you to do your degree and train as a full-time sportsman. I think that's still sort of something that we may have overlooked, and it was a stumbling block when I was running and when I was in NUS. And when we have that very firmly in place, then we can even wean off the foreign talent like even more. That being said, 2.5% is really actually quite a small proportion, right? When we can assure the parents that you can go to university in NUS, but you're going to have special consideration, you're going to have special arrangements for you, then I'm not going to be worried that I will not have a good degree, and I can still be an Olympian, because some of our successful athletes at SEA Games and Asian Games and beyond have gone to the American system, the NCAA system. They have trained there, they have studied there, and then they come and perform. So it's not within our local educational context per se.
Yeah. But we must admit that over the years, the sports for all concept, transited to sports excellence, SPECS. And from there have been various schemes and programs that have sort of succeeded one from the other and resulted to, today we have quite a wide array of programs and initiatives. When I was doing my research, I was really impressed to see the whole spectrum. At least it looks good on paper, But how much, to what extent do you think those schemes and a significant amount of financial resources have been put into it? To what extent have those contributed to where we have come?
I think financially it's amazing, the number of schemes that are in place, like the final push and all that. But I don't think it's an issue of finance per se. I really think it's an issue of giving the parents and athletes the confidence to say that, okay, I'm going to university, I don't need to go to the NCAA system, I can stay in Singapore, and the parents will have the confidence to know that the university or Sports Singapore, something they're going to do something to help the person do his degree. So
I'm gonna jump in here to say that credit to our IHLs. They've come a long way. When I was in NUS,
IHLs as an Institute of Higher Learning.
That's right. When I was in NUS and I said, okay, I need a leave of absence to go and participate in the major games, they told me, great, proud of you, but here's a letter. Don't use this as an excuse for flunking out. Not counted. Today, in our liaison with our institutes of higher learning, they're very supportive. They've been very supportive of many of our national athletes who have needed to take time out and to defer their studies and their modules and their courses. I think that part is fantastic. What's missing? What's missing is that when you are in the university as a 100-meter sprinter, there aren't 10 other, 20 other 100-meter specialists from around the world that are with you. That's the difference to So Ryong when he was in Oregon. That was the time he took Mr. Supaya's record. He's surrounded by world-class runners and systems. That's what's happening for Joseph in the University of Texas. The world's best flyers are at the University of Texas. The American college system is the bedrock of sports excellence in different sports. Basketball comes from the college system in a very strong way. For other sports, it's different. For tennis, if you are in the NCAA, you're not making it. You've got to be outside of the NCAA to make it in the world of tennis. So different sports are slightly different. What we haven't been able to achieve yet is a certain critical mass of world-class sportsmen from not just Singapore, but from other countries who will say, okay, I'm coming here because there's a training system in place in this country that makes me want to be here. Now Sergio is here. Now Sergio is beginning to attract swimmers from different parts of the world to say that I also want to train here in Singapore under Sergio Lopez. That will create a slightly different ecosystem in the world of swimming, but not quite there yet. It will take some years to grow.
But that raises actually an interesting point related to what we were talking about earlier. Because if you think that actually by attracting world-class talent and emerging talents to be here, which means foreign talent, so to speak, not necessarily competing for Singapore, but being here in our system. But you also know the conversations that sometimes go on about, oh, should we be getting others to come? But you see, by having competition, we actually raise our standards as well. So, but that's something to put across, because something we need to think about, because sometimes it's very easy to make this throwaway lines about foreigners, non-foreigners, and so on. But how do they play a part? And we have always been a very open system, a cosmopolitan society, and I think as athletes, you know that actually when you have real competition, that's when you really level up. And I suspect that same idea of competition levels us up in many, many ways beyond sports as well. But just something to think about.
Ben?
UK Sham highlighted a gap that I think is very glaring. If you look at the NCAC, the intercollegiate system, not just for athletics in the US, for sailing, they are extremely strong. The top sailors all come from there. If you look at Singapore, we are not there. And of course, we don't have the critical mass. But we have to develop our own bedrock, and we've got to start soon. Years back, I can understand the excuse because you've got two universities. They are only going to compete against each other. But we've got a lot more universities now. So now's the time to develop that, to raise the level of sports at the collegiate level.
Okay.
If I may add
Yes, please.
to the discussion, I think there's one area which we have not fully capitalized on, and I've heard Shyam. And I think it boils down to our educational system from primary, secondary, before they come to college, is this thing about the attributes that a sporting talent go through, the qualities that can be translated to competencies when they leave the sport into the working world. And if you look at the qualities that the great sport people here have, like the ability to bounce back after a failure, discipline, where I find perhaps at some point is to look at how we can inculcate some of these values into our education system, starting from preschool to primary school, whereby taking part in a sport, be it running, be it swimming, it's part and parcel of a healthy education system. It shouldn't be, if I may quote, this is anecdotal, but it's a fact because I lived through that, is it's raining, no PE, or you didn't do well, no PE. It becomes what I call a relegated activity. And I think we have to change the mindset of the younger ones, whereby the parents recognize that the attributes that come with sport, not the sport itself, but the attributes of bouncing back, confidence, interacting with
resilience.
people, resilience, are actually very important attributes to learning how to learn new skills in the new world. And I think those days of hierarchical as well as rote learning are over. Today it's about, if I need to find out about this, let's Google, let's find out more about it without going into a structured classroom to say this one. And this is specifically the area I think sportsmen have an edge, because they learn to interact, they learn to come up with solutions to better themselves. And I think, and this leads to this thing about being open to foreign talent, because I believe that having foreign talent here should not be a threat. If you start at a young age in primary school, having a child from any part of the world, they dress the same, they go to canteen, tuck shop, they just compete and they get to accept each other. And I think that's where we should maybe, this is the right time, because some of the catalysts are there, but I caution us not get too carried away with this SEA Games success, because we are known to put all our resources together when it's a home event and we turn it really well. Look at the YOG, we did it really well. But what happened to the team after that? there was no follow through, or maybe there have been but not sufficient. But I think what it means also at the primary school and secondary school, can we have a secretariat that is inter-ministerial, be it sports, youth, SAF, MINDEF, or the higher learning, where they come together and say, you know, what is the dream that we can paint for our young? And how do we communicate with the parents to say, you know what, there's nothing wrong in playing table tennis, or nothing wrong in taking up squash. Remember, squash was such a powerful sport we had, and we just lost it. I used to be a fan of squash as well. So I think this is an opportunity time for us to refocus on the youth, our education system, because I think sport is a very, very powerful enabler. Because if you look at all the competencies that the big CEOs or big companies are looking for in the new world, it's not about how well you do in chemistry or physics. It's really how do they relate with people?
Sure.
How do we cope with pressure? How do they operate within a mixed matrix environment? Can they perform? So I hope this will actually allow us to start thinking about the attributes rather than the sport itself.
Thanks, Kok Fan. Ben, you made a very interesting speech in Parliament as part of an adjournment motion. You highlighted 10 areas that we need to start focusing on. Yeah, and one of those areas was about building a sports culture. Yes. I'm paraphrasing what you said. You know, would you want to? I mean, that relates to the point that Kok Fan is saying. You need to build a culture of being interested in sports. You shared the example of some of the parents who came to you. You want to share some of those examples?
No, exactly. So far, this discussion, we've been talking about high-performance sports, elite sports, sporting systems, sports excellence funding. But interlinked and very closely interlinked with that is high participation. Right? And high participation starts preferably when you're young, in the schools. That's why our school system is very critical. It's got a key role in this whole equation. From what I can see, and I think it's very obvious to the others as well, because the speech resonated with so many people, that there are a lot of gaps still in the school system. Right? There's still room to improve. Right? For example, if you look at the PE system, students still feel like they're forced to do it. And if you look at the school sports, right, why does this school do this sport or that sport? It's the motivations medals. The benefits that Kok Fan mentioned, resilience, teamwork, you don't even need to compete at a high level to learn all those things. So the emphasis at school level should be participation. And if we understand that it's about participation, then you must give students opportunities to participate. Often you find that a child wants to join the gymnastics team, goes for the tryouts, doesn't make it, and this is primary one. How good you expect a primary one kid to be, right? Doesn't make it and is excluded from the team. So that poor kid wants to do gymnastics, is interested in sports, but is denied that opportunity.
Actually, from my own experience, I come from RI. During my time, RI and SGI were the top soccer teams. And both schools scrapped soccer. And to my horror, the reason why they scrapped soccer was because it wasn't winning the national medal. Yeah. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, on the podium, there's only 3 places. Yeah. First, second, third. And if every school thinks that, if I can't podium, then I don't take part, then in every sport, there will only be 3 schools.
No, but also, Ben, I think for me, the attitude about resilience is, you better go back and win it back, instead of give it up because you lost it the first time or second time. You know, I mean, I think that's the attitude that we're talking about. But what are some of your thoughts as sportsmen? And anyone has a view on this? Kadir.
We have sports culture. Everybody will be sports. You know, sometime during the badminton fever, you know, there are people selling plastic rackets. They are playing with plastic shuttlecock along the pathways everywhere, you know, and they are playing sports. There are culture, sports culture during our time. But now I don't know, as Dr. Ben says, that only schools, they want to compete, be the podium, that's all. So now, how do we encourage people to play sports?
Yeah. And not only that, I'm sure Kadir will agree with me. I think boxing should go back into OCS.
True.
You mean now they've stopped?
Yeah.
That's very sad.
But this is a bit related to Kok Pan's earlier point about raining and then going out. Actually, we also need to ask ourselves, because a lot of times is when something happens or when incidents happen, and incidents happen from time to time, then when the public responds in particular ways, it creates a pressure on organizations who become a bit more risk averse. Perhaps excessively so, one could argue that, but that's something that we have to think about. I mean, while we say it, on the other hand, when something happens, how does the public react? How the public responds? It affects. And I think one of the big difference today is that we also have a very different world. Children today have so many options. You know, you got Xbox, you have PSP, you have so many different things to distract them with. So sports, I think I actually agree. I think sports develop, as Kok Fan mentioned, I think a lot of the different traits, and not just competitive and winning at the school level. Actually, some of the best games we play was just inter-class or inter-faculty, or even at the grassroots level, this block versus the other block. I mean, you don't win medals in the same way, but it generates a very different feel. And I think you need that volume, because when you have the critical mass in terms of numbers, that's when some of them you begin to find talents, and then they will begin to filter up the system. But when you don't have that large space, you're limited.
So you need to enlarge the pool, right? Derek, behind you, Kadir.
I think the problem is part of a more deeper lying issue. I mean, we've got to also ask, where does the mentality of choosing selective sports come from? I mean, even in the SEA Games, for example, certain sports are selected because they have certain potential, and the schools follows a certain system that is set, that is nationwide as well. So perhaps at the ministry level, I mean, the change has to come from a higher level instead of just at the school level. So it's part of a strategic way for them to compete for schools, but the ministry does that as well. So I don't think it's an easy issue to tackle.
Well, I would say that actually principals have the autonomy. And this is where, I put it squarely, the principals, actually MOE allows that flexibility to make the call. At our level, I think certainly with Sports Singapore, SNOC, I think we need to work with MOE to at least establish, I don't think we should have different frameworks. We have different approaches, but basically on the same song sheet. But autonomy is given to schools in actually much more significant ways than it used to be. So the question is, why are some of these principals scrapping some of these sports, which obviously so many students play? Well, but that's a question that some of them need to answer.
Maybe, unfortunately there's no MOE reps sitting here, but so Sports Singapore, we work very closely with MOE, especially now that we've gone forward with our plans for Active SG. So here's the size of the problem, right? There are 500,000 kids in school. 500,000 kids in school. Even if we reflect back on the time that we were in school, we had opportunities to play, but we also know that not every one of our friends played sport. So the challenge for every school is really number one, and this is emphasized by MOE. We want to make sure that we give an opportunity for every child to be physically literate. And as they go from year to year, they're trying to shape their PE syllabus so that they can be physically literate. Run, jump, roll, throw, hit, strike. Right? And credit to MOE, they've now fine-tuned their sport curriculum to enable children to learn to play 3 to 6 sports over the course of their student life, with the aim that after they leave school, they are physically literate and have the opportunity to continue in their sporting endeavor. And that's where the whole ecosystem needs to come into play. Are there enough facilities in Singapore? So we work very closely with all facility owners to make sure that we have a good spread of facilities. Can we make them affordable and accessible? Are there enough coaches in the ecosystem? Are coaches able to make a reasonable living from coaching? Right. Are there volunteers? I think we continue to work the ecosystem to give more people opportunities to play.
Yeah.
That which is easy and we've seen is running.